guess it was about 2.5 years ago. I was walking around the city and I started seeing these crazy flyers up on poles everywhere. The first flyer I think I kind of half read, and it just seemed to be a marketing for some sort of invention. I think it was the Vital Orbit was the first one I saw. Didn't even pull one of the little flyers yet. It wasn't until I walked around more and more and started seeing some of the other flyers that I really started wondering what the heck this thing even was. I started grabbing some of the little tags and calling the numbers and hearing the messages.
Thank you for calling the Jejune Institute, San Francisco headquarters. We would like to invite you to a special orientation session. We are located at 580 California Street, Suite 1607. For those dark horses with the spirit to look up and see, a recondite family awaits.
I kind of didn't know what to think. I at first thought, okay, someone's making these crazy advertisements for something that's almost too impossible to even exist. And they seem to be urging me to visit this physical place. Once I got to 580 California Street, I was kind of intimidated a bit by both the locale and the building. I realized this is downtown financial district. This is a high rent district. This is a place where you have Bank of America. I walked in and asked for the Jejune Institute. The security guard seemed to know what the place was, asked for my ID, had me sign in, gave me a visitor badge, and at that point directed me to the elevators. I get out and see this very normal looking lobby, and I see the receptionist there who didn't really seem at all like anybody from the website. You know, I wasn't really seeing the name of this company I was looking for. And the receptionist, asked me if she could help me. And I said, yeah, I'm here for the Jejune Institute. And she handed me a key, and that seemed to be that. On one side's a map. On the other side, there's instructions guiding me through the floor I'm on to some location. So I navigated the floor based on the map and the instructions and ended up at a room.
Greetings. Welcome to the Jejune Institute San Francisco Induction Center. Please enter the room and close the door behind you. Now, have a seat in the lounge chair provided for you. In a moment, our orientation program will begin. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
You now sit in a satellite induction office of the Jejune Institute, located in the deep forests of San Francisco. The room in which you are currently located rests exactly 6 floors beneath our global headquarters. The California Center is one of many such stations spread around the globe, in locations such as Oslo, Seville, Algiers, Bombay, Quebec, and Santiago. But the origins of the Jejune Institute are right here. It all began in 1962, when a small group of academics came together around a common interest in the advancement of socio-re-engineering. During the 60s, the society was a closely knit forum for experimental research techniques, utilized to expand interpersonal trust among fellow human subjects. During the 1970s, under the leadership of luminary metaphysicist Octavio Coleman Esquire, the Institute gained the wide influence and prestige for which it is now known. Along with contemporaries Werner Erhard and Stuart Emery, Coleman helped spearhead the still nascent movement of personal growth and self-help. The work they did collaboratively amid the breeding grounds of Est, Echelon, and Dianetics helped to spawn 1,000 like-minded prophets of pop psychology. But what the Jejune Institute is most celebrated for today are the many advanced technological products and services they have brought to the international marketplace. These developments include polywater, a more condensed form of water with a higher boiling point, a lower freezing point, and astounding regenerative properties upon all organic compounds. the vital orbit human force field, a hydrodynamic conductor based upon the Tesla coil, which acts as an external ambassador to your body. And our foremost project, which will utterly revolutionize the way that human beings interact both interpersonally and sociopolitically. Jejune's algorithm, a small mobile device encasing a complex mathematical code that will instantly and permanently reduce all human conflict, violence, and heartbreak. Patent pending.
I will admit that, this was a rather bizarre experience, and I had no real clue that when I went down there, this would be what would be there. And then on the TV appears this rather strange-looking old man who's calling himself Octavio Coleman, Esquire.
You will begin to notice the divine occurring all around you in 1,000 minuscule ways, constantly, all the time. So we will begin the induction process.
At one point, he makes mention of the desk sitting next to the chair that I'm in, and how I really shouldn't open the drawer that's there and take what's inside. And then at that point, of course, I had to open it and look in the drawer. And that's when I, for the very first time, saw what would later be referred to as the induction card. And it looked like a crazy person designed it. I started realizing it was telling me how to navigate myself out of this building, and to do so in a way that evaded the security of the building. So I thought I'd give it a shot.
You may suddenly begin to notice small things around you you had never before noticed. And those minute details will lead to other more significant observations, and so on, ad infinitum, until your entire universe is transformed forever.
What happened next is, in following the card, I end up going on this very eccentric, hour-long, I guess you would say like a scavenger hunt sort of adventure. There were lots of unanswered questions. Who's behind this? Where is it leading? What's the point? And as it started to unfold, more and more things kind of came to light, especially things like new terminology. The word nonchalance was maybe being used in ways that hadn't really seen it used before. I guess I was afraid that at some point I would be marketed to. It'd be like, well, thank you for, going through this thing, buy Reese's peanut butter cups, or something like that, But that never seemed to happen. In fact, the more I pull on threads, the more the lines are really blurred between what I viewed as the insanity I was kind of experiencing and the insanity of the real world. In fact, I would say that a lot of insanity you run into, it's insanity and you can set it over here. But the insanity that I was getting exposed to so much blurred the lines between real insanity and perhaps fake insanity that there was really no distinction. I think my eyes really were opening up, and seeing the world in a different way.
I felt like I've felt before when I was watching a movie and the movie ended and I left the movie theater and everything outside seems better than it did before that. Like the colors are brighter or the world looks like a different place. And I wanted to keep feeling that way instead of just walking around going, I'm going to my job, I have to go do laundry. Instead, I was walking around and looking at stuff with a different purpose. Instead of just trying to get from point A to point B, I was looking for clues. Towards the end of the induction, on the card, you're instructed to call the detective. And when you call the detective, he drops a clue about Cooper Alley. It turns out there's a shrine to someone named Ava. It says, "We miss you, Ava." Then at that point, you're instructed to go back to the building. And you're given a key to this wall of lockers. There's a tiny little peephole. And inside there are these sort of partial letters and numbers and things like that. And then at the very end of the cycle, it comes together and it's the same face that was in the alley. About the same time, I got a text message saying, tune in to Radio Nonchalance in Upper Dolores Park. I actually drove up here in my car because I didn't have a radio. And I sat in my car for about half an hour listening to this station.
Over the course of an hour, there were strange news factoids. There was an interview with the proprietor of the world's smallest postal service. There was talk of strange conspiracy. There was a rant against Octavio Coleman. There was all sorts of fun stuff. It felt very much like listening to someone like Art Bell on the radio. Here, you can't tell if he's for real or not.
And now, Cryptic Radio brings you The Secret of Nonchalance. What is nonchalance, and who are its hidden followers? This is your announcer, Commander 14, broadcasting for a limited time on this special frequency. Keep tuned for vital information. Follow along as we disclose a world whose secret presence may mean the difference between enlightenment and total incomprehension. And just what do we mean by nonchalance anyway? A casual way of sauntering down the street? A kind of cool, perhaps? You like cartoons, don't you? Of course you do. Everyone likes cartoons. Observe as our animated protagonist stumbles blindly out of bed, down the stairs, and out the front door, onto a busy street. He easily but narrowly dodges impending danger, seemingly without effort or awareness. Bricks from a construction site almost, but do not, fall on him. At the last minute, as he's about to step into an open manhole in the street, he's miraculously spared the fall. And after numerous similar close calls, his unconscious path is turned around in a revolving door, and in his own building, by fortunate coincidence, he's somehow returned to bed, unharmed by the end of the cartoon. This ability to be supported and guarded by extraordinary good luck is called divine nonchalance. By definition, the nonchalant is wonderfully scattered and lacking in all external direction. The ride is fantastic, but the destination remains uncertain.
You are listening to Radio Nonchalance, dispatches from elsewhere. Support for this program has been provided by the Elsewhere Public Works Agency. Now, back to our program.
Well, the EPWA's position on the Jejune Institute was that they were selling false nonchalance, and what they meant by that, as best as I can tell, is that that creative spark which drives humanity cannot be marketed, cannot be sold, cannot be given to you in a bottle. You either have those moments or you don't, and you can't control it. So anybody who tells you otherwise is selling you something.
Attention! This is Commander 14 of Cryptic Radio. Nonchalance is all around you. Wake up! It's later than you think. The false prophets are even now consolidating their forces as they draw up their plans against us. Beware especially the one the world calls Octavio Coleman, Esquire. For he is in the present era the main opponent of nonchalance, and a cynical and fiendishly inspired deviser of false nonchalance. Founder of the Jejune Institute, chief funder of the algorithm, main perpetrator of false nonchalance, CIA operative and informant, saboteur and provocateur, Octavio Coleman, Esquire, is the man who is behind all of the monitoring, subversion, and suppression of nonchalance. During the 1980s, Coleman illegally obtained protected patents and legal control over a series of innovative products. Taking personal credit for these discoveries, Coleman at this time consolidated the Jejune Institute as a limited liability corporation. Today, the Institute commands an unheard-of freedom from governmental regulation, or, for that matter, any superior authority. This might have dire consequences for all operating nonchalants in this area.
basically what had happened is I had gone to the Institute, and I had gone through the first phase, and was amazed by it, obviously, just like you should be, amazed and confused. And one day, about a week later, I was on my lunch break from work, and I walked down the street to pick up a slice of pizza. And when I came back, there was Jejune Institute posters all over the street where I just was, and on every sign and on every window. And so there had obviously been multiple agents in the area flyering everything. And so I got on my skateboard and I started skateboarding around and trying to find who was putting up these posters. And then I did see someone, and I kind of approached him, and I said, I asked him if he was following his nonchalance. So he knew that obviously I knew, and we started to talk, and he told me to give him his email address, and then he left. They scheduled me to come down and have an appointment with him in the offices, and I didn't know exactly what to expect, and they told me to dress nicely, which obviously for me could mean all sorts of different things. They told me to show up early, and I knew what was going to happen, that there was going to be a protest, that I would lead it, and that it would end at the Lipo Lounge. And they gave me a couple of these armbands. I put some on. They handed me a bullhorn and told me that they had hoped I memorized all the chants. And there was no chants. So I said, yes, absolutely. I know all the chants. I know every chant. I know all the chants. I know every single chant. And they said, let's go. I didn't know when they said oh yeah, you'll lead it. I didn't know I was physically going to be oh, we're going this way now. So I didn't know exactly where we were going. There was no route assignment given to me, and I don't live in Chinatown, so I don't know the best way there. So we took the long route, and of course, if you were there, you know what happened. I led us right past the Jejune Institute, and obviously there was, Octavia was waiting there for us. And then they gave me a handshake, and then I never talked to any of them again after that.
Every day I would go to this children's amusement park. It was like literally a rabbit hole that you could fall down into that led you to these, dioramas, or the magic key that you could put into a story box, and then it suddenly would be telling you a fairy tale. It was filled with wonder and filled with discovery, and I wanted to know, why is it contained inside the gates of this little park? And then you go out onto the street and all you see is walk, don't walk, no dogs, or this way, or do not enter, or all these rules and lines and restrictions. And I wanted to crack it, and I wanted to open it up. And I think it was this very subconscious influence for me that, there should be this kind of play infused into the architecture of our real world. People would totally willingly accept that there was a Coca-Cola or a McDonald's or a cool cigarette billboard, right outside their home or their schools, but they would be upset by the fact that somebody did a piece of street art there, and that seemed really backwards. And I was writing essays about this theory that I called threads, in which all kinds of media could intertwine with each other to tell a story. And that's really the beginning of what developed into Nonchalance.
I just graduated school with my degree in sound arts, and I was doing work with Oaklandish, both doing sound for some of their events and just selling clothes to make ends meet.
I knew of Jeff. I don't think that we had met in a way that either of us would remember, but he's been very influential in kind of the grassroots arts community in Oakland for quite some time, and so I knew of him. But it really started. I saw a post on Craigslist.
Through someone at Oaklandish, I heard that they were building an automated room. I did not know what the point of the automated room was beyond create an interesting environment for players or participants to engage in on some level.
I mean, initially I was hired on contract for a small part of the job, and then when Jeff asked me to come on full-time as the lead producer, I started asking a couple more questions and being a little nervous.
I guess you could say I learned about the project in the way a lot of players learned about the project, as the more I became involved, the more questions I asked, and when those questions got answered, a story started to emerge.
Words like urban playground movement and alternate reality game, and it was very opaque.
I would describe it as a game that you play by going out into the city and doing things. And as you do that, you become part of a story that's unfolding in the city, in the real world.
What we're doing with Nonchalance is giving people a mission and giving people permission to become an agent and to explore the space in a different way, to go in and out from public and private spaces, and to explore and to discover hidden things in their environment, and to play, ultimately to bring spontaneity and play into our civic spaces. Some people thought it was an actual cult and they were afraid to go to the induction center. They thought, these guys are like Scientologists. For me, the signals were out there that this was some kind of a game. But I definitely, in the beginning, had the intention of people going, what the fuck? Really? Or to give the notion that this was totally like marginal lunatic fringe people putting up these flyers. And so, of course, it attracted some of those types of people, and we definitely got some voicemails that were chilling.
I lived in San Francisco for 11 years and had to leave because of gang stalking activities and being surveillanced and monitored and all the frequency manipulation. And it's a really serious thing to have done to somebody. And if you seriously want to go up against them, you need to get better together than kind of these silly ramblings that honestly don't really make any sense.
Wow. Like literally, I've listened to these messages and go cold because these people were engaging with this. This was their reality to them. And for me, it was this huge fantasy. And so there was this blurring of the lines between a real flyer and real voicemails, and then the content, which to me was absurd, but to other people maybe wasn't so absurd. And Organelle is a great example of that.
I saw a way to play that was entirely new, that would bring together strangers under joyful and hilarious circumstances. I'd realized that a place that had previously been mundane and sort of enemy territory, i.e., the financial district had been magicalized. And so my hope was to help a few people see that something really magical and unexpected could come out of this. Something really beautiful and life-changing. I created a web page about the Jejune Institute and hid it inside the organelle material. I saw people start showing up suddenly, like 2 or 3 of them, which doesn't happen. And these people were talking about things that didn't make any sense to me, that I didn't understand. They were clearly familiar with this idea of an ARG. And them treating it like a game offended me.
He definitely was so deep into the experience that he often spoke of it in such a way that a person wasn't really quite sure where they stood with him as far as where he drew the line.
People would say something game, and organelle would say, you don't understand. This is not a game. You're not taking this seriously. You clearly don't have the vision. This is not a game.
He insisted that there was more going on than just some sort of game. Whether or not, I don't know what he suspected, but I think we just disagreed on that point.
He thought that maybe this was going to change the world or be an opportunity for people to really come together as an organization that could uplift the planet in some way. And I don't think there's any limits on the amount of things you can do with this kind of artwork, but it was certainly beyond our scope. There was a certain point when I was surprised to receive an email from him saying, I'm no longer going to have anything to do with this, and please erase any evidence of my participation with this, and in my heart and mind, this is already done.
I was actually injured on a couple of Jejune errands, twice. Unfortunately, the second time was the last time I was outside. That was in July of 2009. And I was so badly hurt that it wasn't safe to transport me. Like, jiggling would cause muscles in my abdomen to tear.
I had never heard of anything like that happening to any one of our players, and knew of no situation or event in which anything accidental had happened at all. And I kind of came to the conclusion that this was all something that he had kind of concocted in his mind.
I had no assistance whatsoever. I was kind of trapped here in my house. And I began to become really concerned that, well, to be quite frank and terribly honest, in those circumstances, I was somewhat paranoid. And I felt that, with some reason, that my interaction with the Jejune Institute was possibly spiritually harmful in some sense. At first you go in and you're kind of starry-eyed and you have the experience, but once you start understanding a little bit more of the plot, quote unquote, you realize that the Jejune Institute is the bad guys. And so you've given your personal information to the bad guys. And not knowing who's really behind it or what really their goals are, from the sinister nature of the Jejune Institute, it is not clear that you're involved with something as beautiful as Elsewhere. And so I wanted to distance myself from it at that point.
Commander 14, calling Eva Lucienne. Evelyn, we need you to come in. Repeat, we need you to come in. We have a chance of decoding the encryption of the first 6 phases of the algorithm. But don't go to the safe house. It's been compromised. Coleman's got his goons there now. Use your key and follow the signs. We need you to come in.
You are listening to Radio Nonchalance. Dispatches from Elsewhere. Support for this program has been provided by the Elsewhere Public Works Agency. Now, back to our program.
Monday got to work and I had an email sent to an email address I don't use a whole lot, and it was from the Elsewhere Public Works Agency asking me to be at a certain intersection by the payphones. It was 24th and Mission at noon. So eventually I got a call on my cell phone from Commander 14, checking in and saying that that the Jejune Institute was moving in, or something about the green energy archons. I don't remember what he said.
The closure of a temporal vacuole is imminent. Repeat, imminent. Without physical jamming to offset transneural interference, a negative loop cascade sequence could be initiated. Do you see 24th Street?
Yes.
Cross Mission and continue down 24th. I will be making contact at that location in 5 minutes' time. When I say ornithopter, you say jumpsuit. Ornithopter.
Jumpsuit.
Ornithopter.
Jumpsuit.
Okay, now go. Hurry. Ornithopter.
Jumpsuit.
Ornithopter.
Jumpsuit.
Now, we can get this transaction rolling. The time is nigh. Now, listen quickly. Dance. You heard me, dance. I say dance.
Dance, okay.
It is imperative that you now dance. I hope you dance. This interaction cannot happen without rigorous physical jamming. Now get off this phone and dance, motherfucker!
We needed to stop the energy attack by rigorous physical jamming, which is what we did. So I started dancing, and then I started hearing music, and this guy showed up with a boombox, and he started dancing with me, and then a Sasquatch showed up, and he started dancing with us. And there was a moment that the song ended, and we heard what sounded like angels singing, and the Sasquatch gave me the transcript. Which, that's a very weird thing to say, but that happened. So with the mat came the CD of cult music that had a lot of weird stuff from like Jonestown and this group called Yahuwah from the 70s and on. But it also had a hidden track on it, which had a little girl named Ava and her mother taking a walking tour of the Mission District.
This is archival binaural field recording, designation 16-62-TC13. Tape was engaged at Tula Lane and Abbey Street facing southwest. Headphones or other stereo personal listening device should be used during playback.
Hi, Ava! Hi, Mom! Well, good day to you, Ava, my dear.
And a pleasant afternoon to you, Madame.
How was school today?
Tedious, but I lost another tooth at recess.
Really? Shall we save it for the Tooth Fairy?
No, he's scary.
You've seen the Tooth Fairy?
Of course.
And he's a man?
Yes.
So, do you have time for a little walkabout today?
Uh-huh.
Where shall we go then?
Elsewhere.
Again?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's start walking northeast down Tula Lane. Okay. You can see the old cemetery on our left. Thousands of Indians who died of Spanish diseases were buried right here. They're underneath us right now. Oh. Sometimes if you listen, you can hear them. Now go left and you walk along Dolores. You can see the Mission San Francisco de Assis, founded on October 9th, 1776, by Father Francisco Paulo. That's really the beginning of the whole city. Let's cross over to the median.
Oh, you mean by the palm trees?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to show you something. We used to feed the fairies.
Well, what would you feed them?
Berries, of course.
And are the fairies still there?
They come and go as they please. Elsewhere I'm back. I always get headaches when I walk by these green boxes.
I know, me too. Let's walk faster.
And here we are at Commander 14's house. This is where he does the radio show with Pi Epsilon. Dad helps them out with the transmitter, and right next door is our house. Let's play hopscotch.
That is a very peculiar board.
This is a game of interdimensional hopscotch. It helps you practice how to get to elsewhere.
Let's turn right on Albion so we can say hi to Mr. Books.
Hello.
And here we are, my second home, Adobe Books. After you.
You need to look on the shelf for the book on interdimensional hopscotch. It will tell you what you need to do. See you in elsewhere. Bye.
Well, my name is Kelvin Williams, and I guess I came into Adobe Books. I had met the owner before. You know, I'm a book person, I'm a librarian. You know, we all kind of move in the same circles. So I was interested that this book on interdimensional hopscotch should be there, of all places. I struck up a conversation with the owner who happened to be there, and I just asked her, you know, this is kind of odd that you have this here. I didn't know that you had these kind of esoteric interests. As one acquaintance to another, do you have any other materials that might be connected to this? Do you have any, can you point me any further? And she said, well, Kelvin, I've got a box of materials that would probably interest you in the back of the store. Some, you know, ephemera, you know, handbills, posters, and so on. But down in the bottom of the box was this book, which turned out to be the diary of Ava Lucian, who was, it seemed to me, a really extraordinary person. You know, she embodied a kind of transcendence and the ephemerality of youth at the same time, and that was really what caught me about her. I had noticed in Ava's diaries there was references to the SF Savants, which was a b-boy crew that I had maybe heard of years and years ago, but it turns out they still had a MySpace page. These people were relatively accessible, and I was fortunate enough to get in touch with Delsqui, who suggested, he didn't want to talk about it, but he suggested I get in touch with Beth and gave me an email address. And so she and I corresponded by email a little bit. I think she could see that I understood Ava as someone more than just another teenager who disappears, or another hip figure of the San Francisco scene of a certain moment, but rather as someone who had something more to say. And so I eventually wore her down. I kept asking her, do you have documents? Do you have information? Do you have more about this person? And it turns out she had.
Ava?
Yeah.
What are you? Your hair! Oh no. No, you. Oh my god!
It's okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's time to go. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Look at these fucking pages.
Just read one.
Freaks me out to reflect on it. It makes me feel like I sound crazy.
No. No.
You think I'm going crazy?
No.
Up late when I should be sleeping, consumed with the thought that the world is not as it should be. When I was younger, I believed in a goodness, a kindness. Yeah, it sounds sappy, but really I feel like things were a certain way, and now there's a deep sadness, a pain. Was it always there and I couldn't access it? Is this just a symptom of growing older, one becomes more aware of hurt? Were my parents simply that good at sheltering me? Dad worked hard to raise me, but how he saw fit. I admire him sometimes, but it pissed me off too. He told me the world was safe, or at least that I thought I had a safe place in it. It's difficult to compute when people just vanish. How am I to maintain faith and expectations when my mother's fucking gone?
I I think Ava in herself embodied a certain way of being that suggested the potential for the world to be transformed. She was flirting on the edge of some insights into how reality works. You know, she had got it, and that became either an inspiration or a threat, depending on how you understand it, to the Institute and the agency.
Wow, how many are there?
Enough.
That's
You
all
guys
that
want
matters.
to take them tonight? I was gonna save them. Save them for what? Weekend? Why? Oh, we're gonna drop out. You don't have school tomorrow.
Hey, what y'all talking about over here?
Nothing, dude.
Oh, y'all tripping again?
No.
Ava, aren't you on probation?
Oh, whatever. It's not like we're fucking doing acid. It's not even illegal here.
What shit?
Nothing.
Chloe, get it together. Chloe, how many beers in that pin, girl? You're so...
I feel
Girl, you're
emotion.
drunk.
feel
I like it.
why
Ava,
I
you okay?
can't to see you again.
What's going on, girl?
You.
Girl,
Dude,
you
fucking cops! Dude, the cops are going!
Let's go! Ava, come on! Ava!
You know, maybe there was something more to the games of nonchalance besides simply a fun scavenger hunt. Rather, that maybe whoever was behind it was actually trying to commemorate Ava in some way, or trying to share who she was with, with people in San Francisco and around the world. A kind of, I don't know, maybe the whole project, maybe the whole experience was a kind of elegy to Ava and what she represented. Yeah, that's where the Reconstructing Ava project came out of. Because I wanted to be able to say, well, look, there's these people playing these games, and there's a whole wealth of information about what they really mean. At the time, I was seeing a man who was a police officer, and he quickly learned about my obsession with this particular topic. And I twisted his arm a little bit, promised him favors, if he would help out and see if there was anything in the police department, archives, storage rooms, whatever, that might shed light on this.
Beth, you were the last one to see Ava. Now we need to know exactly what happened that day. On Sunday the 16th, when and where did you first see Ava?
We always meet at the garden.
And that's the place you mentioned before with the bench and the parking meter. Is this the spot where you said Neil, your local vagrant, was seen?
Yeah.
So did he ever talk to you?
No, but he talked to Ava.
And what did they say to each other?
I have no idea.
Where did you see them talking?
Up at Neil's little spot. We call it the Neil Estate.
Did you see Neil there the night that Ava disappeared?
No, I didn't.
Did anyone else?
Well, I know the others might have seen him that night. Play 2 did, I think.
Play 2 it is then. Yeah. What else can you tell me about this Neil character? Did you see him on the evening in question?
Yeah.
So I seem to have heard that you had some interaction with him on that night yourself. Am I right about that?
Nah, I never talked to him.
Tell me more about that night. Did you at any point in the evening see Ava talk to Neil?
I don't think so.
But you did see him that night.
Yeah, man. He was hanging out around the stone wall. We'd seen the dude dipping around that wall all the time.
Dipping around?
Yeah, you know. Looking down, poking around the crevices between the rocks, looking back up again.
Doing what?
Doing what he does. Being a weirdo.
So it was just yourself, Ava, and Chloe around that point. Is anybody else there? No one else, like, for instance, this Neil character?
No.
So what happened next?
The police were coming up the hill and we ran. But when I went and hid when I got there, I was hiding and
she was gone, and Chloe just kept running. She just kept running, and I thought she went home, and I was like hiding and whispering, Ava, Ava. She didn't answer, and I was there forever, but then I just figured she went home. So eventually I went home too.
Did anything else happen on your way home? Did you see anyone? Anything unusual?
No.
So the obvious question was, what happened to her? And why is she the point at which these two organizations kind of conflict or meet? Her father, Blair Lucian, as it turns out, was a kind of, scientist slash mysticist slash inventor. And he had created this thing called the algorithm, which he thought was going to be a very powerful way of helping humanity ascend to the next level. And Blair Lucian's a real person, and he had a real house in West Berkeley in the 70s and 80s. And I did a little snooping about his property records and just about the construction of the house and the neighborhood. And it turns out this particular house has a basement, a real underground basement, which you don't really find in the Bay Area hardly at all. Here I was spending a lot of time trying to figure out who Blair Lucian was. What's the meaning of his special basement? How do you interpret the fact that the algorithm is clearly with the Jejune Institute, and there's an artifact that makes it work that is somewhere else? That artifact being the crystal oscillator. By this point, I was really at a place where I couldn't tell where the game ended and reality began. I'm not proud of it, but I broke into a family's house, went into their basement, and in their basement, as it turned out, there was this door that kind of led off somewhere, and I didn't pick the lock. I actually just kind of smashed the door down. And behind it was this tunnel. There was a drop-off, and then there was a tunnel full of water. And I went down there, and I started following it. I didn't really have a flashlight. I just used my cell phone light. And I ended up getting lost. I have a kind of sea of memories and sounds and darkness that was relieved by the players who found me, to be honest.
I was asked to participate in a rescue of Kelvin Williams. He'd gone missing for a long time, and his website, his blog, was taken over by the Elsewhere Public Works Agency.
Your mission is to find and retrieve Kelvin Williams, and if possible, recover the crystal oscillator. If Kelvin Williams has it in his possession already, he'll know what to do with it. But primarily, you need to help him get out of the underground. You're here, and you need to get over here, and then find the creek bed and follow it downstream into the subterranean labyrinth. Be forewarned, shit gets weird down there. Go through the second open portal to your right. If you hit 850, you've gone too far. Down here.
That's a map of underground.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. That was terrifying, yeah. We were asked to go down into these storm drains under the streets of Berkeley to rescue Kelvin, and it was very early in the springtime. There was still quite a bit of winter runoff in the pipes. In order to get to the tunnels, you had to go along this park, go down into this river, so we were, this deep in water. Soaked all the way through right from the beginning. And then when we got to the tunnels, there was water rushing past us. So several times during the course of the afternoon, we had to hold on to the sides of the tunnel to keep from sliding down into the water, into the runoff. And it was these old brick tunnels at some point. So there was weird sounds being piped in from all these side tunnels and strange notations written in chalk on all the walls. And a lot of them said, like, look behind you. So we were constantly I think I was even bringing up the rear most of the time. So I was constantly looking behind me and trying not to slip and trying not to hit my head because the tunnel was, 5 foot something or other. So I was crouched down the whole time, incredibly comfortable hearing the sounds of hooting of the Jejune goons. So I imagined those black-clad creatures coming up and just grabbing me from behind the whole time. So it was a game, it's part of the game, but at that time, at that moment, it really didn't feel like a game anymore. It was genuinely scary, yeah.
Holy shit. That tunnel wasn't there before. Hi. How did you find this place?
The Hollowhead
This tunnel-
sent us.
Where did this tunnel come from? I came from the other way, and there's a chamber, and get me out of here. Somewhere back there.
Kitten?
The tunnels go the other way, and it was in a chamber. You want to see it?
Yeah. Hey.
Maybe we should wait till we get out.
I don't know what to make of it, but that's it. That's what they said. It's got a crystal.
And without this, the algorithm's useless.
I guess.
All right, let's form a little bodyguard party around him and the crystal.
Everyone understands what somewhere is. If I say San Francisco, most people know what I'm referring to, or at least they think they do. They have an idea of here and an idea of there. In other words, here is the place we are, and there is the place we are not. Elsewhere is a kind of magical between. A human being, someone like Eva, with the right understanding, can take the seed within them and become a doorway to elsewhere. I suspected that Eva's deep capacities to use this seed to transform our reality in ways that we were unprepared for was the reason why she was pursued, and also the reason why she disappeared. It was my suspicion that somebody became aware of this girl's capacity to introduce unexpected novelty into situations that seemed otherwise frozen, and I feel that they were intent on co-opting these abilities for the sake of corporate, military, or cult-like goals. And thus, she had to arrange to put herself in a position where she would be inaccessible to people who she would be otherwise unable to evade, and that she remains, I think, in a suspension, a kind of suspended place, a place of suspended time, identity, and location, a place which we use the term elsewhere to refer to.
So Act 4, even before it started, I was really excited for it because it actually took place in Oakland instead of San Francisco, and I live in Oakland, and it's kind of like home turf for me. And when I found out it was at the Chapel of the Chimes, I was even more excited because it's this beautiful, it's like a mausoleum. It houses, probably like thousands and thousands of people's ashes, but all the urns are books. So you walk in and it's like trees and plants inside, and there's like little corridors and little alcoves, and they each have like different names, like the Chapel of like Spirituality, or they all have these really amazing names. And it's also right next to the Mountain View Cemetery, which it might be one of the oldest cemeteries in Oakland, and it's just really beautiful, and I've always gone there to just hang out or write or be like emo or something by the graveyard. I don't know. We had gotten assigned into groups, and each of us got mailed a postcard, and the postcard gave us a direction, and then they gave us like a line that we were supposed to say at a certain point, but it was all really vague and we weren't sure how it all tied together. The meeting spot was not at the Chapel of the Chimes, it was a couple blocks away, and the whole group met up. A lot of us had never met before, and so it was really cool to like meet other people that had been involved, or maybe I'd only like seen them online, like I had no idea. There were like markings on the ground, I think, that we followed, and eventually we ended up at the Chapel of the Chimes.
Yeah, there it is, 4499, Chapel of the Chimes.
Alright. Let's just find the compass.
Compass. Oh, found it! North, that way. Alright, now what?
Assemble Then take notes and embark upon completion. Enter under and thy coming in.
And thy coming in.
Oh!
Oh, and oh.
Now it says one of you has to die. And find patience. Oh. Patience cord. Patience cord.
God, we almost went into restricted area. Oh, shit.
There's the word patience is on this door too. I don't think it's just good. And then play.
Period.
What does that? What could that mean? I don't understand. I'm confused now.
Patience, patience, patience. You found me. Welcome, my friends. I know you were concerned about me, but isn't it clear now that I am where I was always meant to be? And you've traveled such a long way to arrive here today. You came together to make this happen. I am so moved. I want to take this moment to fully take it in. Look around. Contemplate our surroundings now. The stone and the tile, the light through the stained glass. We've all arrived here for a reason. Each one of us played our part. Now, are we ready to continue our voyage? Above the door, do you see Mason? Retrieve the vase that is by Mason above the door. Pair up with the person not holding a blindfold who is closest to your height. Now, blindfold that person. You've lost one of your senses, and you'll need to replace that with trust.
I was at the front of the line and we all had our blindfolds on and had like no idea what to expect, and suddenly this like hand just reaches out and grabs my hand, and it really just kind of took my breath away. And during the whole, when you talk about the whole experience, you know, we're trying to find Ava and what happened to her, and it was like physically, well, in my mind, it was like physically Ava like leading me, like holding my hand, and that's when I kind of lost it, and I was like silently crying like underneath my blindfold. And the whole concept of Elsewhere has just been really special to me. I always feel like this world is missing something, like there's some spark that I want it to have, and that's what I feel like I'm constantly searching for in my everyday life. And the concept of Elsewhere is like that's it, like that's where I want to be, that's where, you know, there's possibility and imagination. I'm sorry. Well, long story short, I got Elsewhere tattooed on myself as kind of a little memento, but I don't know why I'm crying. Sorry. Like, meaningless coincidences really mean a lot to me, and I just feel like there's something out there guiding that. The feeling that I had that day just kind of summed up everything that I had done. Like, that feeling that you get when you find a clue or something, or you like make the connection of what you're supposed to do next, that split second of like connection, like that's when you're in Elsewhere. Like that's what's awesome.
Basically, a couple months before the year was out, the company, Jeff, had come to a decision that budget needed to be severely cut for the new year, and that was simply in the months to set up an ending to it, because there was always an intention to create an ending.
You know, Jeff and I talked, and it started small in terms of, well, we can't afford to, we're going to have to set an end date because we just can't afford to keep running it.
The wind down was beginning in some way, shape, or form. It became very real that this was going to have an end date, and that end date was going to become hard soon.
And it really was just a case of the art was the most important thing, and the business of it got in the way.
It was right at that time that I was approached by Jordy Aitken, a leadership training person for like corporate team building exercises in Canada. And he wanted to meet, and we just got along. It was like fast friends instantly.
It was, what do they say, a bromance from the beginning, and a beautiful one at that. Not because Jeff is beautiful physically. I mean, not that he's not beautiful physically, for sure, but what I'm trying to say is it doesn't have nothing to do with physical beauty.
We had this shared knowledge of the history of the self-help movement, and he had this appreciation for my craft, and I recognized in him this really charismatic, compelling, and very skilled and experienced person in this realm.
You know, I just do what I do. I lead groups. I'm used to resistant people and cynics, and I'm comfortable moving into fictional rules or different persona in order to facilitate an experience. Because sometimes, for instance, in the ninja training work I do, I move into this sort of sensei role, which requires a kind of different slant on my normal personality.
When people first entered the induction center, it made them nervous. It freaked them out a little bit because they didn't know where the fiction was and where the reality was. And that was the tension that we thought was really rich, was really compelling.
And bringing a climactic conclusion to the story through opposition seemed almost to him trite or too pat or maybe too easy. It was just too easy.
What happens when you get all these people in the room and they're expecting it to be this big science fiction fantasy, and you just hold a seminar all day long?
Well, there was so much lead up to the seminar. We were to run a covert operation at the pre-screening at the hotel room. We were supposed to look for these little bioforce globes.
Everyone was told to steal, it was called a bioforce globe, from a bowl in the room. And it was supposed to be this thing that operated the vital orbit force field that was going to destroy the Jejune Institute once and for all and bring their jejunery to light.
You know, bringing this guy down didn't seem like such an awful thing. Like, you know, if we could put an end to a cult that's potentially ruining people's lives, you know, let's do that.
Hello. Hello.
How may I help you?
I'm here for the pre-screening.
And your name, please?
Mark.
Mark Ellis?
Mm-hmm.
+1?
No.
Okay.
Do you have a twin?
No.
Yeah.
Could you please have a seat on the cushion chair?
All right.
Now, this is a very straightforward process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you a few questions. We're going to take some readings, and then I'm going to show you a video. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. The first thing we need to do is get you wired in.
All right.
It's a completely painless, non-invasive procedure. Please lean your head forward. Thank you. Are you left or right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Need your left index finger, please. Please place your attention here.
Mm-hmm.
What's your name?
Mark Ellis.
Where were you born, Mark?
In Walnut Creek.
Where do you live now?
Martinez.
How long have you been participating with the Institute?
For about 2 years.
Have you ever experienced a lucid dream?
Yes.
Have you experienced a lucid dream within the past year?
I think so, yeah.
Within the past 6 months?
Maybe not.
Are you dreaming now?
I don't know.
Have you ever experienced deja vu?
Yes.
Have you experienced deja vu within the past year?
Yes.
Within the past 6 months?
Yes.
Past 3 months?
Maybe.
Alright. I'm going to show you a video. There's no right or wrong way to experience this video. However, it is extremely important that you give the video your undivided attention. Do you understand?
Yes. Is that it?
I don't know. Is that it?
I don't know. Is that it?
That concludes our pre-screening process.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Enjoy your weekend.
All right,
See
you
you on
too.
Sunday.
Thank you very much. So, I did get one of these. It looks like a flower bud. It's pretty cool though. Alright, well that's it. I'm done. Hello.
Hello. Good to see you. Your name again, please?
Mark.
Mark, your last name?
Ellis.
Mark Ellis. Did you dream last night?
Yes.
Excellent. Are you ready for today's event?
Yes.
Perfect.
Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
So the day of the seminar, you know, a lot of us had our Bioforce globe things.
The EPWA was going to give us the power to take down the Jejune Institute.
We would all do jazz hands, and Commander 14 would show up, and maybe even Ava would show up. And hooray, we're the triumphant ones, and go get drunk. I don't know.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're all here. I'm here. We're here. Aren't we? We are here. I am Antoine, and welcome to Socio Reengineering 2011.
Welcome
to Socio-Reengineering 2011, brought to you by the Jejune Institute, LLC. 32 years ago, the very first Socio-Reengineering seminar took place at Slide Ranch Retreat Center on the dramatic coastline of Marin County. Once a decade, we have continued on in the tradition established at that first monumental event. Today, you are here to participate in that legacy. Of many beautiful things to emerge from that historic weekend, there was a particular union established. It was the romantic connection between Institute researchers Evgren Logan and Mrs. Tori Hotprut, which continues to burn brightly to this day. From this cosmic spark, a child was conceived that weekend by the name of Antoine Logan, a shining light in the movement. Antoine became a young protege of Octavio Coleman Esquire, spending his formative years under his close tutelage. Today, we will have the singular pleasure of experiencing Antoine Logan in all of his vision, strength, and wisdom, as established through his careful application of the Jejune method.
Feel your body, feel the gravity that pulls you to the ground. We are material. We are full of judgments. We fall in love with what's possible. Synthesis allows us to plow forward and to do the hard work of really learning about each other, which moves to a place we call high performance. The layers of our personality are predictable. We call it armor because when we hold on to how we see things, when we hold tight to our habitual worldview and opinions, we become quite rigid. Often our character armor, that habitual way of seeing and operating, gets in the way of becoming who we need to be. The wisdom body speaks in these sorts of, you know.
He had us doing these deep breathing exercises and going, and apparently, I wasn't there to witness this, but apparently we took a bathroom break and he was standing at one of the urinals going,
There was a break, and after we came back from the break, they were setting out glasses of hot water. And we're like, oh my God, this is like when they're going to make us drink the Kool-Aid. Like, maybe this is like, maybe we've been like fooled all along. Maybe this is a cult and we're like all about to die.
Some of you brought something with you. Take it out now. Take it out. It's okay. It's okay.
He just like kept on trying to get us to put the balls in the water, and he was like, put them in your cup. And we're like, no, like, because inside we're on the PWA side, like we can't betray them, you know? But eventually people started putting the tea in the water, and I put mine in and immediately regretted it. And I was like, God, I let them get to me.
The key in that moment was that I didn't resist their resistance. That my unflappability helped seduce some of the weaker ones into putting their orb into the tea, and it helped provoke the more strident participants into greater and greater levels of resistance, which became a comedy in itself, to the point where someone says, why should we do it? And I say,
because that's how we make tea.
And everyone got it, because the laughter rippled through the room. And in that moment, even despite themselves, everyone got the comedy. And I don't know, the absurdist truth cut through the levels of reality, and suddenly the game merged with the present moment. Alter egos merged with real identities, and everyone had a laugh.
There's a party in the house and we'll be rocking tonight. So bring your body with you, baby, and I'll make you feel right. It's a freaky celebration of a natural kind, and the pleasure you'll experience will blow your mind.
I participated in all of the dancing and rolling around on the floor and stuff.
There was a moment where we had a a video conference with a dolphin, and everyone acted like they knew what he was saying, or at least everybody on the Jejune Institute staff.
The seminar ended with all of us getting into under 3 big parachutes and doing one of those group exercises where you bring the parachute up and let it fall down and bring it up and let it fall down, and then you sort of get into this womb-like state where you're laying down, and Carolee was right next to me. It felt very safe. And right then, somebody from the Jejune Institute either moved a chair or just got a little bit too close and kicked me in the head, like really hard. And that ended up being a pretty good way of summing up my entire experience at the Jejune Institute.
And allow yourself to stretch and to touch each other and to touch the biofiber that's all around you and to reconnect to life as you want to live it and breathe deep of the succulence of your life, this transformed life, and make your way beyond the perimeter of the chute. And join us. Join our people.
So, do we still think that this is just a game? Let's talk about reality and illusion. Are you pretending to be here? I am not. I am present, right here, right now. And I feel your presence too, all of you. Perhaps this very moment is us waking from the dream, collectively awakening. Aha! That feels good, doesn't it? Remember the day you walked into the induction center? I promised you 2 things. 1, that you would begin to notice the divine occurring all around you in 1,000 minuscule ways. And 2, for those dark horses with the spirit to look up and see, a recondite family awaits. Look around you. We are that family. And this is only the beginning. Okay, you lock the doors and release the poisonous gas, please. Huh? Scared you, didn't I? Well, guess what? Yes, thank you. I get scared too. Even I didn't know what was going to happen here today. I acknowledge how far you all have come, and I honor you. Ava bless. Thank you.
At the end, Carolee turns to me and she says, we lost. We did it wrong. We lost. We lost the game. And I felt so much like Charlie Bucket, you know, that there was something that we had, over the course of the day, we were supposed to do something with the coins maybe, that we didn't do.
I felt like it was just stopped short. Like this wonderful arc had just gone and fallen into the ground. I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but I went into kind of a month-long like funk afterwards because I felt like I'd been duped.
You know, if we had taken action, it would be very real, very weird action. You know, and I don't think anybody wanted to do that. Everybody wanted to be entertained. So it just felt like, man, the book was good, but the ending was weird. You know, that doesn't change the fact that I really enjoyed the story.
I think it's the organelle factor. Nobody wanted to, you know, who wants to attack an old man, you know? Like, he's an actor, you know? Like, I'm not going to take it that seriously.
I think if you looked up Jejune in the dictionary, you would find that it is, like a Jejune endeavor is a pointless endeavor that will never actually get anywhere, you know? I think that maybe what they really missed was exactly what was kind of fulfilled at the end.
I mean, there's a moment when Wile E. Coyote runs off that cliff and wheels his legs for a minute and looks down before he falls and has that pause midair, suspended by nothing but his own momentum before he collapses. And I'm not sure in this moment whether I'm referring to Jeff or to the players, but there was that moment throughout that day. I think maybe if you don't look down, you'll never fall.
There was this sense that people were expecting this final event to play out in a science fiction and fantasy realm, in which there were shootouts and chases and things. And I think there was an element of wanting to punish those players who seemed to be missing what the real story was, and that was about Ava.
Back in the late 1980s, I was a runaway. I made my way eventually to San Francisco, and a Coit Tower seemed to me like some kind of a spiritual lightning rod or something, so I started hanging around there. To occupy myself, I began to make little art projects, animals or mosaics, and eventually I started making these little scenes in the crevices in the stone wall. One of them was this scene with a camp, a kind of a hobo train car and some street kids gathering together. A few days later, I found that someone else had added a new scene, which was this beautiful scene that was also kind of spooky. There were flowers and a tree, and this ship in the background with some strange kind of pilgrims there. A couple of days after that, I was starting a new one, and I made this sort of room or stage, but left it mostly unfinished. The next day, I hid nearby and watched. This girl came, and she added a light and the letters E and W down by the door. Then she put these birds in as if the light was lifting them into the sky. I think that's when I felt safe enough finally to approach her, and we met that day and became friends. She asked me if I understood about the light, about those letters, about a place she called elsewhere, a way of being and playing in the world that somehow changed everything. A game, sort of, but without any rules. A way of being in the world that was powerful and enchanted.
I met Ava after a show at the Stone on Broadway, and she ended up crashing at my parents' house for about a month in the garage. And it was during those times that she and I would meditate. It was a kind of a form of meditation, and she would guide me down these paths towards this place called Elsewhere. And Elsewhere was, neither here nor there. And it was this entire universe and this entire tribe, and with this imagined history that was very intricate and detailed and went back a long way. I think that, like, every bit of art or creativity that I produce is in some way inspired by her. It was during the time that I was in treatment that she went missing, and it wasn't totally unusual, for her to skip out for a little while, but then there began to be these theories of either an abduction or a suicide, and I don't think it was suicide.
There's the algorithm, right, that Blair Lucian came up with. And I think we got a little glimpse of the algorithm in action, in the sense that there was moments where, the ordinary world was transformed into something different, something full of potential and full of mystery in a way that we don't usually experience.
I don't know if there is a conclusion. I don't know how it ended, because I never looked up on the message boards or anything, or really necessarily asked anyone. So for me, it could still be happening. And I know they closed down the building, but but as far as I know, the war is still being waged on the street. And that's fun. It's fun that way.
I miss the Jejune Institute a lot, and I still talk to people about it. I have a dog, and her name is Jejune.
Yeah, definitely this is playful. The experience is a lot of fun. But I think the underlying messages are real. So in that respect, is it a game? I don't really know.
If you don't have religion, you don't have that built-in explanation, finding something that tells you there is all of this amazing stuff happening, and you just need to know how to find it. It is a little bit like having something to believe in.
Today you've glimpsed into the elsewhere and felt, for a moment, what it is like to be here. And it's only a small taste of what's to come.